Algebra 2 students. In this video today we're going to be learning what the standard deviation is, okay? And we're also going to learn how to find the standard deviation. Your heading today is obviously standard deviation. The lesson number is 9.7, and as always, don't do that, of course. As always, be sure and include today's date, okay? Be sure and include today's date. First, let me give you a list of numbers and then explain to you what the standard deviation does for statisticians. In fact, let me stop and say this. I'm probably skipping some stuff you need to know. Just like mean, median, mode, and range are statistical things that we find when given a list of numbers. Standard deviation is the exact same thing. You use this when you're given a list of numbers. Now I'm going to explain what it is in just a second. Please write down these numbers. I'm going to move on. If you want to pause the video, fine, or just keep listening. That's up to you. But please copy down these 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 numbers. Please copy down these 9 numbers. If you were to find the mean or the average of these numbers, you know what to do. You would add these 9 numbers together and divide by 9. Now go ahead and make note of that somewhere in your notes, that the average of these 9 numbers is 78.2 rounded, okay? So please make note of that in your notes, alright? So copy down these 9 numbers and then make note in your notes that the average of these 9 numbers is 78.2. Now, let's talk about that for a second, shall we? You don't need to write anything down, but just listen to me. If you want to write stuff down, you can, but you don't have to. Now listen. If I walked into class and let's say we took 9, there were 9 tests, and there's the 9 test scores, okay? And let's say I walked in the room and I said, guys, the class average was about an 80. That's pretty good. Now I didn't lie. About 80, 78.2 is about an 80 average. So I walk in the room, my guys, the class average was about an 80. Good job. Now that's true. I'm not lying. However, the average is misleading. Look at this. When you say to his class the average was 80, that's not bad. Sounds about average. Look, we had 3 A's. And then we had F, 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 F. And realize it's 1 point from an F. I'm going to call it an F. May as well. I mean, it's 1 point away. 3 A's, all F's, and 1 C right here. So when you hear the average is 80, it sounds pretty good. But then when you see how dispersed or spread out these numbers were, you can see this is really a misleading statistic. So the average is not always a good statistic to use. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, okay? So here's where the standard deviation comes in. Listen to this carefully. The standard deviation gives you a number that shows you how dispersed the numbers are from the average. Now, if you're writing this down, that's fine. I mean, you guys are big students, so you kind of pick and choose. But I would definitely write down some of this stuff. I mean, I'm telling you right now what the standard deviation does for you. It gives you a number that shows you how dispersed the numbers are from the average. The larger the standard deviation is, the more the numbers are spread out. Are you listening? Thus showing that the average is not really a good statistic to use. So when you find the standard deviation of these numbers, and relax, I'm going to teach you how to do that. It's very easy. When you find the standard deviation of these numbers right here, if the number is large, then you know the numbers are spread out. And that's what's going to happen with these numbers here. The smaller the standard deviation, in other words, if the number is small, the more close the numbers are clustered together, thus showing that the average is a good statistic to use. Okay, now we'll talk more about this as we go through, but that's what the standard deviation does for you. It shows you, once again, it gives you a number that shows you how dispersed or spread out the numbers are from the what? From the average. Okay? Alright, moving on. We are going to use your calculators to find the standard deviation. However, I still would like you to have at least seen the formulas for finding the standard deviation. So, You do not need to write these down, okay? You do not. But what you could do is put down in your notes. Sorry for yawning, I'm a little tired, guys. What you could put down in your notes is the page number, okay? So on page, you can write down in your notes, page 502, and turn over and look at this if you want to. Here's the standard deviation formula. Now here's what it means. This is really tough, okay? Think back to these numbers here. 60, 70, 62, 65. Look at this. I had to copy some of these. I'll just hold off right now. Okay, now, you take the first number in your list, which is 65, and you minus the average. So it's 65 minus 78.2 squared. That's what that X with the line over it means, just so you get used to statistical notation. And X with the line over it means the average of your list of, we'll call them X numbers. And then X subscript 1 is your first number in your list of X numbers. Now when I say X numbers, this has nothing to do with XY coordinate plane. It could be any letter, okay? Now look, go to your second number, 70. And you would have 70 minus the average quantity squared. Now go to the next number. Do you see how hard this is? That's why we're going to use our calculators. But I just want you familiar with this formula. Now there's two formulas. This is the more difficult formula. There's another one that's a lot easier. They're both the same. They both do the same thing. They both are equivalent, okay? And then so on and so forth. So you go to the third number, which is 62. And you would put in 62 minus the average, 78.2, quantity squared. And you would do that for every number. And then divide it by n. Now n is the total number of numbers in your set that you have. So we have 9 numbers. And after you do all that, take the square root of it. It's really, really a long formula. Now, if you'll look in your books on page 503, they give you a better formula. This is a lot better. You simply square it. If they're equivalent, I would love to take time and do a proof of this. But I just don't have time to do that right now to show you how they go from this formula to this formula, okay? Maybe I'll have time later to do that. If so, I'll let you guys know, but it won't be in this video. Now this formula here for standard deviation is a lot easier than this formula. Just square the first number, which was what? 65. So you would just square 65. And then you would just square 70 was the next number, so plus 70 squared plus 62 squared, and go right down your list. And then you divide all of that by n. And then after you do all of that, then you subtract out the average, which was 78.2 squared. X with the line over the average, and then take the square root of all of this. That's still a lot of work, guys, okay? That is still a lot of work, and that's why these calculators do the standard deviation for you, okay? And that's how I'm going to have you do it, which is very normal. In a math class, very normal. Okay, so if you're a little lost on what I just said, it's okay. You are not going to have to use these formulas, but I just wanted to at least introduce you to them. Now, let's go back to the list of numbers I gave you at the beginning of this video. There they are. You should have these written down in your notes. Let's find the standard deviation for these numbers. Are you ready? Okay. The first thing you have to do, obviously, is enter these 9 numbers into your calculator. Okay. So if you'll listen carefully and take really good notes, watch, you should be okay. All right. Now, the first thing you do is you push your stat button right here. Everybody see it? So push your stat button. When you do, this should pop up on your screen. You should have edit across the top, EDIT, then calculate, CALC, and then test. And then of course some options going down here, okay? Now take really good notes on this, guys, okay? 'Cause you have to do it. You're going to have to do this on your own, on tests and quizzes. It's easy to do, but you have to know what buttons to push. So you push stat, and all of this stuff pops up. Now, you want option 1, which is edit. So option 1 is edit. So hit enter on edit, and when you do, you should see something like this pop up on your screen. It should say something like L1, and then a line going down, then L2, then a line going down, L3. And by the way, if you scroll to the right, you'll see there's more of those. there's L4, L5, and L6. And that L stands for lists. You can put a list in, okay? So what I want you to do is pick one of your, you can start here or here, it doesn't matter which list you use, that's up to you. List 1, list 2, or list 3, or list 4, or list 5, or list 6, it's up to you. Now, here's what you do. You enter these 9 numbers. So let's say you choose list 1. Go over to list 1, and there should be like a cursor right here. Hit 65, and then enter. And it'll pop up right here. Then hit 70, enter. 62, enter. And then go through all of these numbers and make sure all 9 are entered. Everybody with me? Alright, let's review just for a second. So you push stat, and across the top you'll get edit, calculate, and something else I forget. Tests. Okay, and then you enter option number 1, which is edit. So hit that, and then your lists pop up, and then enter your 9 numbers. Now after you've entered your 9 numbers, listen carefully, you want to quit. So the word quit is right here above the mode button. So hit second and mode, and you'll come out of this. Okay, now your screen should be blank. Now, you want to find the standard deviation of that list of numbers. So here's what you push. I hope you're taking really good notes. You push second, and then stat, because you want list. You want that list right there, which is above the stat button. So hit second, stat, and this should come up on your screen. Names, ops, and math. Scroll over to math. So scroll to the right until your cursor's on math. Then if you'll look at option 7, there should be a bunch of options going down. Option 1 says min, option 2 says max, option 3 says mean. Go all the way down to option 7. Now if you have a newer TI 84, your option might be in a different place, but mine is option 7, and it says STDDEV. Okay, standard deviation. So you want to scroll down and hit enter on that. Now when you do that, this is going to pop up on your screen. Standard deviation with the parentheses. Now, do you remember what list you put your numbers in? I hope you do. For me it was list. On my calculator it's list 2. I believe. I'm going to check real quick. And it is list 2, yes. So, right here what you want to put is list. For me it's list 2. Now where do you find that at? Look at your numbers down here, guys. Look above the number 1, it says L1. Look above the number 2, it says L2. L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, and L6, okay? So you want, mine's in list number 2, okay? So I'm going to hit second, and then number 2 for list number 2. When I do this, will pop up. And then close your parentheses if you want to. You don't have to close your parentheses, and hit enter. And you're going to get this. 17.3477. We'll put this. Now that's a pretty wide dispersion, guys. I mean, you want numbers like 1 or 2 or less than 1, like 0.89. 17's a pretty big number, okay? It's not like we're talking percentage. If that was a percentage, that would be a small number. Pretty small. No, we're talking standard deviation. Should be a really small number, 1 or 2, maybe a 3, or 0.05 or 0.5 or 0.7, something like that. So with that in mind, you can see these numbers have a very large standard deviation. So the average would not be a really good statistic to use on this group of numbers, like I already told you before, okay? Alright, now I hope that made sense. If you feel like you need another example, then keep right on watching, okay? If you feel like you understand this, stop the video, you're finished with your notes, and go on with the other stuff you're supposed to do in class today, okay? But if you're going to watch it, here we go. Find the standard deviation for the following numbers. Let me give you quite a few, okay? Alright, there we go. Now if you want to practice this, I put these under list 1. So if you're going to practice, here we go. First of all, make this pretty big for a second. And then for me it's list number 1, so I'm going to hit second 1 for list 1. Whatever list you put it in, go ahead and type in that list. And what you should get is, let's see here, second list math, standard deviation, list 2, or list 1 for me. And you're going to get 3.4. 3.4, that's a pretty small number. If you're in your 1s, 2s, and 3s, you're pretty good. So these numbers are dispersed pretty closely together. So if you found the average of these numbers, that would be a pretty good statistic to use. Okay? Alright guys, that's it. I told you the video would be short today, and the homework is pretty short also. Hope you guys have a good day today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.